We know that the body has a nature. It can feel pleasure, it can feel pain, it can feel hot, it can feel cold, it can feel hungry, it can feel satisfied. The body has a nature. How do you know? Because I'm conscious. The mind has a nature. Psychology studies it all the time. Mommy did that to you when you were young. Now you're this. Now the mind gets this way. The emotions are a different way because a different thing happened to you. How do you know? How do you know? You're in there. That's how you know. The heart's just emanating emotions. You're the one who's conscious of them. Your mind has a nature. Psychology studies that. Your emotions have a nature. They study that too. More important, spirituality doesn't study psychology. It's very important that you work through your psychology so that you're not so caught in your psychology that you understand that you're the one who's noticing your psychology. You're noticing that the heart hurts. You're noticing that the heart's happy. You're noticing that it fell in love. What happened? What do you mean it fell in love? There's all these beautiful energy and beautiful emotions coming up from my heart, aiming out towards somebody. How do you know? How do you know that's happening? Because I'm in here. Spirituality is about who's in there. Psychology is about why are these things happening. That's the human aspect of your being. But like some people say, I'm only human. How do you know? How do you know? And you will eventually realize that you who's in there, the essence of your being, not your thoughts about you, but you who notices the thoughts, has a nature. That's spirituality. Not studying psychology, the nature of the mind, the nature of the heart, or physiology, the nature of the body. Those are good things. There's nothing wrong with studying and learning about those things. But understand that you are the consciousness that is aware of those things. You are not those things. If the mind stops talking, you're still there. If the mind gets noisy, you're still there. If the heart's filled with love, you're still there. If the heart hurts a lot, you're still there. It's you. What is the nature of self? What is the nature of Atman? What is the nature of soul? It has a nature. But you don't know that. Why? Because if the sun is in the sky shining all these beautiful rays, but you're only paying attention to what they fall on, but it's illumining things, and you're only paying attention to what it's illumining. You're not paying attention to the nature of light or the nature of the source of light. And that's what we do with the self. We pay attention to what consciousness falls on, the emotions, the thoughts, the this, what we see through our eyes, pick up through our senses. Consciousness is what's aware of that. The consciousness is the subject, it's always the same, but there's all these objects. What would happen? But what would happen if you managed to not do that? Not do what? Not have thoughts? No, I didn't say that. Not get lost in the thoughts enough to where you think they're you. The teachings are as follows. If your mind says, I loved him so much, how could he have left me? That is no different than your mind saying, look, there's a cloud out there. It's a thought. All thoughts are the same. There's something that emanates from your psyche, and you are the consciousness that's experiencing them. What would happen if you didn't get pulled down? They have a power. Thoughts have a power. Emotions have a power. They pull your consciousness into them. Just like if a hammer falls on your toe, how can you pay attention to your toe? Why are you paying attention to it? Because pain draws your consciousness into it. It distracts you, doesn't it? It distracts your consciousness to focus on the source of pain. Your heart does the same thing. It distracts you. Your emotions distract you. Your thoughts do the same thing, don't they? They distract your consciousness and they pull it down into your thoughts, into your emotions, into your body, and into the world. There's a boat. I want that boat. And next thing you know, your whole inside is focused on a boat. Okay? What would happen, just for kicks, if that didn't happen? What do you mean? What would happen if your consciousness, your center of consciousness, as we call it, the center of consciousness, the source of where your consciousness is emanating from? I didn't have emotions. No, you have emotions. I didn't have thoughts. Yes, you have thoughts, but you don't get pulled into them. You stay centered, clear, in the seat of self, and you feel the nature of your being aware of the thought. I told you to send your consciousness down to your foot, didn't I? And then your hands. You did it, didn't you? No problem. Well, who said it has to go down to the thought? So what? And just say to the thoughts, it's okay. I'm not going to pay attention to you right now. I won't suppress you. You just do whatever you want. I'm going to stay seated in the seat of consciousness. And what would that be like? Consciousness has a nature. Its nature is beyond your comprehension. And that's why people miss spirituality. The nature of consciousness itself is ecstasy. Why? There's no why. It's its nature. It feels joy. It feels love. It feels inspiration. It's expansive. You just feel this tremendous expansive energy moving all through you and above you, and you're just emanating this light like the sun does. If you're not focusing what the rays fall on and you focus on the sun, that's a whole other experience, isn't it? That's the light of consciousness. That's the source and the nature and the seat of consciousness. You are the sun. You are a pure, beautiful, beautiful being made in the image of God. That's what's back there. How you like that? Right? So if you want to understand spirituality, meditate on the self. Honor and worship your own being, for God dwells within you as you. The trouble is you think you're what you look at. You think you're your ego. I like this, I don't like that. And I can't believe he said that to me because that you think you're that. No, you're the one that's aware of that. See the difference? You're the pure consciousness that is aware of what you're looking at. But we'll talk in a moment. I promised I would. That's not all that easy to get off of that, is it? It has a pull, and it pulls you into it. I want to talk about what would happen if it didn't. That's what spirituality is what is the nature of self. It is pure bliss. It is pure ecstasy. It is nirvana. That's why they use the word nirvana. Where did the great masters go? Into that. Where did Christ go? Or maybe he was always there. When he said, my Father and I are one, what does that mean? That he's there. He's merged with all consciousness. And so basically, as you come back to the seat of self, as opposed to what consciousness is shining on, as you come back to the seat of consciousness, you do indeed experience this energy. That energy has been called spirit, it's been called chi, it's been called shakti. And people feel it at different levels. The great masters of different traditions, experience that enough to intoxicate themselves. That's one great master. There are great masters, and you are it. That's who you are, not I am scared and I'm afraid. My Father and I are one. That's who you are at this moment. Not someday you'll meditate enough. Not someday you'll earn enough credits to graduate to that level, right? If you are conscious, you're it. If you are aware of the mess that's going on inside of you, instead of getting all upset about it, you should be laughing. Because I, who am aware of that, is in a state of complete ecstasy at all times. How do I know that? Because sometimes you feel it. Sometimes something happens and you open and you feel love, don't you? And you feel joy and you feel inspiration and you feel all excited and you can take on the world. And sometimes you're like a wet dish rag. I can't do anything. I'm so tired. I'm so scared and I'm insecure. Right or wrong? When you are open, meaning you're not focusing on the garbage that's down there, if you're not focusing on that stuff, you're going to think of yourself as whatever you're focusing on. And so if you focus on the garbage, you get drawn down. If somehow something nice happens, somebody says something nice to you, you get an A, you win the lottery, you get a new car, or you get married, all kinds of nice things happen, don't they? During those times, you're open and you're more elevated. And so the consciousness doesn't get pulled down. And sometimes, what is that that's going on inside of you? I'm telling you, it's there all the time. That's your psyche. Your psyche is programmed to only open under certain circumstances and close under other ones. So that's going on inside of you. But you're busy hanging out with the object instead of the subject. So now we've defined spirituality very deeply, haven't we? You are it. You in there who's looking at whatever you're looking at is the highest being that walked the face of the earth. Well, why don't I know that? Because you're busy identifying with what you're looking at instead of identifying with the one who's looking. Are we now clear? Because if you understand that, you understand spirituality. That is the essence of it. So what do I do about it? I'm not a big technique. I don't teach you how to meditate. I don't teach all this stuff. Other people do, and that's wonderful. I don't teach you how to do yoga. I just teach you this stuff. I teach you why you would do yoga. I teach you why you would meditate. But you find your own techniques. You'll figure out how to get dressed in the morning. You figure out how to go to school. Figure out how to drive a car. If you want to do it, you figure it out. You want to figure out who you are? Understand that you are getting drawn down into your thoughts and your emotions, and the world outside is affecting your thoughts and emotions, isn't it? It affects your thoughts and emotions, and then you get pulled down into them. So now you're lost in the objects of consciousness instead of centering, being seated in the seat of consciousness. So what do I do about that? Why am I not there? Because you're being pulled down into the object of consciousness. Why? Because it's a habit. It's a very, very strong habit. Ego's a very strong habit, isn't it? Somebody says something, let's say you have a wonderful day, it's beautiful, temperature's perfect, and somebody just invited you out that you always wanted to go out with, right? And then somebody shows up that you don't get along with and says something to you. You get upset. Why? Why were you willing to come down? You were up. Who cares what somebody says? You're doing wonderful, right? And all the experiences you had, they programmed you. Man is the sum of his learned experiences. You are not the sum of your learned experiences. Your psyche is the sum of your learned experiences. He's absolutely correct. Your mind and the behavior of your heart, your preferences, and how you react to them is the sum of your learned experiences. And you're the one that's aware that that happens. You are the consciousness that's aware. Your psyche, the sum of your thought patterns, your emotion patterns, they are the sum of your learned experiences. How do you know? Because I notice that they do that. Because I'm in here. The same you've been talking about? Of course. So it's not true that you are the sum of your learned experiences. Your psyche is the sum of your learned experiences. You are the consciousness, the awareness, the indwelling being. But psychology doesn't study that. They study what you're aware of, right? Which is wonderful. Somebody needs to study that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And therapists can help. It's all wonderful, and you'll get that help. But just understand, you don't need any help. You're in ecstasy no matter what. That is the state of your being. But you can be aware of a personal self that mourns because somebody died or feels love because you're around someone that you feel more comfortable with. But just be aware it's the same you that's aware of all this. So how do I work my way back to these higher spiritual states? You do it by noticing that you're noticing. That's called witness consciousness. Witness consciousness.